name is Jeff Carr, CEO of Alter Consultants. Today, we're going to talk about a report that we had commissioned and developed by Mint Jutris, a research company, recently about experiences with ERP implementations. Over the years, we've seen the marketplace embrace ERP products. But we've also seen over the years that companies have struggled with these projects. More recently, we've seen the implementations be more successful. I wanted to find out what was really happening in the market space. To join me today to discuss this very important topic is David Stevens, who's the Chief Revenue Officer at Rootstock. I'm going to pose a couple of questions, David, to get his input on some of these conclusions. So we'll look at what are the conclusions and then ask David what his input is from his business. On this slide, we focus in on the factors that contributed to the success. So 67% of our respondents said, yes, we had a successful implementation. Now the question is, well, why? What were the key things that helped make you successful?
I think we would agree with the top three things as the list presents it. As a sub-thread, even across those three and some of the other items in the list, would be a concept that we emphasize with our clients, which would be around getting over the goal line, really putting an emphasis on having that phase one go live. When we look historically at ERP and some of the ERP graveyard topics in terms of the misinterpretations in the marketplace, if you look back, 20 years or more in ERP and you compare it to the success ratios that the survey finds in the last 5 years, I think a key contributor that we emphasize on is ensuring that customers understand it's really important to get live, to be using the application for the scope defined. Too many times we see companies continue to stretch their goals and to stretch their objectives. And ERP obviously is already like an elephant, and you're trying to swallow that elephant whole as part of the process. And that's a challenge. And when you keep feeding the elephant through a project and it continues to grow and becomes harder and harder to digest, that just continues to run the risk of kicking the ball down the line in terms of trying to get over that goal line for that first phase objective. And so we really emphasize in customers, let's get live, let's break this up into pieces where we can get the common framework established for ERP, begin realizing the benefits, and then look to later phases for a lot of the fine tuning that in the past too many companies tried to put all into that first go live.
David, I think that's a great insight. And I think that really gives a lot of information to people about how they should go about doing these implementations. Let's look at the opposite. So here we see the results from the survey. It really comes down to just good project management, making sure you test the product, you train properly. But there's also business process reengineering that has to be done. And there's sometimes a fit question that we find. And there's also resistance to change. When people struggle, are these the kinds of reasons why they struggle?
We do find in our experience similar factors to why companies struggle with ERP projects. Again, similar to the success factors in the prior point, the challenge factors or the factors that cause difficulty in ERP projects, we might see a little bit of a different ordering of the top reasons why companies have challenges in ERP projects. But generally speaking, we see a similar list as the study indicated.
Let's move on to another question that we asked in the survey, and that is budget. We asked the respondents, were they over or under budget for the project? And we found that less than 40% of the respondents were at budget or under budget. The other 60% had budget problems. So that tells me people still struggle with managing their expectation of how much they are going to spend. What's your perspective on that, David?
Yes, Jeff, I think that Rootstock would agree with the assessment of the survey in terms of the results of customers who are on or under budget. I think the main drivers that we see there are, customers setting expectations, like you've said, and managing these projects to stay focused on those expectations. It goes back a little bit to my prior comments about staying focused on what the objectives of the project are and really focused on getting live on the ERP in the initiative scope that we have and not allowing that scope to continually increase along the lines of the project. So I think expectations and staying focused are really keys to staying on budget as part of the project effort.
I wanted to talk about schedule. What is the expected time from the initial installation to the first go live? If you look at this next chart, you can see a variety of expectations, everything from a couple of months up to well over 24 months. But the majority of them kind of fall in this 3 to 9 month period. The mean expectation is 9.39 months to do the implementation. Is that typical in your situation? Or are you seeing faster implementations in your business because you're on the cloud?
We went back and looked at the metrics internally in preparation for this session and compared it to the results of the survey. And our analysis shows we're at about 8.25 months. And that pretty much aligns average expectation to actual implementation. I think that's about 15% lower than the survey results. We were honed in on in our analysis at that same kind of 25 million to $1 billion company size range. So I think that, certainly if you look at the market as a whole and where Rootstock does focus on cloud ERP and cloud only solutions, that is something that we would definitely attribute to the improvement we see in the speed of the implementation of our solutions compared to the overall mix of the ERP market being some cloud, some hosted, some non-cloud or on-prem.
I think that's very interesting. The survey says 9.3, your cloud, and you say 8.2. So pretty close. It really sets an expectation or a message to the potential buyers and people that are going to be implement this. Hey, this is not easy. It's not going to be 3, 4 months. It's going to be an 8, 9 month type of a project. Very interesting numbers that you came up with as a result of this report. Are there any other final comments that you want to make, David?
One of the things that we've seen are customers coming to us saying, look, replacing an ERP system is really scary for our business. We know we need to do it. We have business drivers why we need to do it. But taking that step and making that launch really is a big challenge for the business. The trend we're seeing in the marketplace is companies looking for ways to break ERP apart. And this coined concept of two-tier ERP allows a company to take a business process, for instance, and implement ERP around a business process. So let's say we're not doing great manufacturing planning or supply chain planning today. Can we leave our cost and accounting systems in place on our back end and take a step with a new ERP or a new cloud ERP technology where we could go tackle supply chain planning, manufacturing planning, factory execution, leverage things like IoT without having to replace the entire backbone? And I think also you had given the example before where companies had achieved a much shorter cycle than the 8 months or 9 months implementation, where they might be doing a business unit or they might have merged or acquired a company. That's another concept we see in two-tier ERP, and what we call that two-tier ERP by business unit. So maybe a company did acquire a business unit, and rather than implement a legacy ERP system in that business unit where they know long-term they want to go in a different direction or move to cloud, for instance, a different direction than the legacy ERP, they'll make a choice to implement Rootstock ERP in that business unit. Much more cost effective, quicker time to benefit, and gives them kind of a foot in the, a toe in the water, if you will, in terms of experiencing this cloud ERP and making a partial ERP transition without having to, swallow the elephant, if you will, from the earlier example.
I think that's great advice. And that concludes our presentation today. Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully it was helpful for you. Please keep tuning into our website for more information on additional webcasts that we'll be producing.